Back again with another game vid. Today I'm going to be talking about a side project I've been taking part in to overhaul one of our old routes, the West Somerset Railway. A while back I noticed that one of our game designers, Liam, had started overhauling the West Somerset Railway route to bring it up to Train Sim World 4's standards. He shared loads of screenshots and I loved how it looked, and I knew that the audio for the route would need some work in order to match the new quality set by the visuals. I've done a lot to the route to bring it up to the standard we expect these days. I started off by creating brand new ambience blueprints, as the actual system for controlling the ambience was outdated. I implemented the new ambience control system and created some brand new zonal ambience for the route. I made use of some sounds from quite a few different routes I did the sound for, like ECML, Glossop Line and Peak Forest. Like any route, I also sourced some brand new sounds from our sound library. On top of completely redoing the route's zonal ambience, I also added new detail sounds along the route for various workshops, car parks, farms, docks, beaches, caravan parks. I could go on. Of course, I had to add my tunnel and bridge noise to the route. It's actually amazing how well it was received by our players. I hadn't realised how much of an impact it would have on our community, but people really like it, so thanks, it means a lot. Just like the tunnel noise, my canopy rain's making a return. That's now being used along the route to add the sound of rain on roofs and canopies. Something I started doing in Main Tile Barn is adding unique sounds for each collectible, so I had to do that for this route. I also developed a bit of new tech. It's by no means exciting, but it sure is useful. I developed a blueprint that overrides the footstep system without editing anything in the core files, as submitting changes to the core game is pretty difficult since it requires so much focus and testing to ensure it won't break anything. So this pretty neat little system bypasses it and implements it on a route level. To demonstrate this,
we're gonna rock down to
Antique Avenue, aka my testing level. This blueprint essentially waits to register a collision. It then checks that the colliding object is the player. If so, it'll set the easy in ocean ball to true, which starts a timer. This is only because I wanted the blueprint to refresh its values while it's actually being used, as opposed to if it had just been set to use game tick, where it would keep refreshing constantly whether or not the player was standing in it. This basically optimizes the blueprint and saves on PC resources while the BP isn't needed. The timer checks every 0.4 seconds that the player's still in the water. If so, it'll do 2 checks. If the mix modifier isn't set to active, it activates it and sets the is mix mod active ball to true, preventing any more mix mods being applied. I've used the mix modifier to mute the player's actual footsteps so I can overlay the splashy water footsteps instead. It's a bit of a jerry-rigged way of doing it, but as I said, I needed to avoid a core game change to make life easier. The final checks to ensure the player's moving. If they are, then the footstep sound will be played. When the player leaves the blueprint's trigger area, the is in ocean ball is set to false. It clears the timer and then removes the mix mod so you can hear the normal footsteps again. And finally, the is mix mod active ball is set to false. Here it is in action. Onto the loco changes. I've made some fixes and improvements to the class 09, 33, 52 and 47, which are the primary locos used on the route. So first off, I fixed the class 09's horn. It was bugged and would cut out every time you sounded the horn, but now it's fixed. I've also tweaked the internal mix of the 09 to muffle the engine, running noise and zonal ambience. I also created an internal version of the horn to make it sound like it was resonating within the cab. On to the class 33. The horn wasn't super high quality and didn't have very good transitions when playing it, so I've implemented a new horn system that lets me create much better transitions between the start, middle and end of the horn. Here's how the horn system works. When a horn lever's flicked, it changes the boolean to store whether it's the horn at the front or back of the loco. It then triggers a function that contains the logic to play the horn. Storing it as a function means that each individual lever can trigger the same piece of code while inputting different values. This segment calls the functions to update the high and low horn values based on the input, then storing if the horn is looping or not. Inside the update functions, it checks that the value for the horn lever is correct, 0.5 for the high horn and minus 0.5 for the low horn, as well as checking if it's meant to be the front or back horn. It'll then play the horn at the right end of the loco. When you let go of the lever or change the pitch, it checks the horn was playing and then transitions to the correct end sound. In addition to the new system, I was able to find the original horn recordings and re-edited them. So not only does the horn work better, but it sounds much nicer. I've tweaked the internal and external mix of the loco, as I thought it was quite loud up close, but the volume dropped off way too fast when it was moving away. So I've improved the mix of the loco sound. Similar to the 09, I've also muffled noise when inside the cab, as well as implementing an in-cab version of the horn. Finally, I altered the sensitivity of the horn lever to make it feel more responsive when flicking the lever. I've done the same for the Class 52, as I've re-edited the horn from its original recordings and implemented the new horn system, because it was sounding a bit glitchy and didn't transition too well either. The internal and external mixes have been tweaked, and an internal version of the horn's been added. I also tweaked the horn lever sensitivity on this one as well. And finally, the Class 47. I was able to find the original recordings for the horn, but to be honest, they weren't much better than what's already in game. So instead, I exported the files from the editor, trimmed and tweaked them as needed, and re-imported them, which made the horn sound a lot better once I'd added the new horn system. Again, I also tweaked the mix of the loco, added an internal version of the horn, and tweaked the horn lever sensitivity. And by the way, the West Somerset Railway Overhaul will be a free upgrade to everyone who already owns the DLC. Hope you like it.